I'm often asked about the difference between paramotor and paragliding, and while the two experiences feel different in flight, I'm making this video to just kind of show what it's like to get ready to set up or to actually get to the flying site itself. The first big difference is it's not an established flying site, it's just some little spot in the desert that I thought looked good. And so, first step is just to identify the potential for it. The second step is to check out sectional charts and make sure that we're not violating any airspace restrictions. So as you can see on this one, we're at a little community called Helendale. It's just outside of the Air Logistics Center, and it doesn't seem to be in any restricted military operating areas or anything like that. And so, now that it looks clear on there, we get out here, we're checking for good weather. And today is freaking awesome looking. We've got a massive upper stratus formation that's blocking out the thermic activity. And when we get here, we can see birds that are just kind of cruising around. They're not really getting knocked around in thermals too much. There's a little bit of thermic, but in the greater sense, I've seen, the birds are just flapping for most of their flights. So that's good for us. The wind direction is consistent. Looks like that we have a pretty steady direction for the hour that we've been here just waiting. And we do have to be a little respectful here because we've got some communities that are built up around this particular area. We're not launching this field with any permission. We don't have permission to be here. So we're going to tread lightly. We're going to make sure after we launch we get out of the area and that we don't cause a nuisance for anybody that's actually paid to live here. So that's a big difference between a site like this and going to an established flying site for paragliding, where you have landowner relationships and waivers and insurance to be doing that type of activity. But so we're going to get into the air and see what it's like, and maybe this could be an option to occasionally come out and do a little flying by motor. So this is the scene at the paragliding site, and what's cool is that you're not going to get chased out of here or get a ticket or have anybody really complaining as long as you're following the rules and you have all of your certifications, ratings, and membership taken care of. And it's a similar condition to the paramotor scene from yesterday, but it's a different feel, right? We don't have to worry about maintenance or spare parts or anything like that. We just throw the bag down on the ground, throw the wing inside, and then go home with it. So kind of cool to have that simplicity. And then obviously the flying styles are a little different, but this is why we like to come to these clubs, because it's all laid out. There's that feeling of not having to worry or look over your shoulder when you want to go fly. It's almost priceless. Now, obviously a paramotor is a little louder than a paraglider, and this can be a source of conflict for neighbors and bystanders. Additionally, the equipment is heavier, and so it requires a frame to hold it, and it takes away from our agility that we have in paragliding or with a canopy in general. For that reason, we're typically looking for very stable conditions, because we don't want to be launching with turbulence or have changes in the airflow that could make us fall down or get dragged with our equipment on. So we're looking for the calmer conditions of the morning and the evening, and generally don't fly in the middle of the day unless we're at the ocean or if it's a cloudy winter day like on this day. At a typical paragliding site, you'll find training hills and students learning how to fly because it's a sanctioned activity. Here we have some guys going off the hill and working on their launch skill set. And as they get better at this, they'll be moving up to higher launches and getting more airtime until a point where they can actually start flying around in unstable conditions and catching thermals and staying up for hours. Okay, running your ass off. It's hard to beat the simplicity of a paraglider, and you also have the option to hike with your entire equipment set, so the hike and fly market is becoming a lot more popular. On the higher launches, where students get more airtime, they're able to work in maneuvers and practice descent techniques. So that's generally the goal, is just start small and then work your way up as your skill level progresses. There's infrastructure here, like ride surfaces to launch and restrooms and places to park your car. The landing zone itself has established approach patterns and air traffic, and people are following rules to make sure they don't have conflicts with each other. We share similar areas for lift, and we observe right-of-way patterns to make sure that we don't have any collisions. In paramotor, it's generally not so organized because people fly around with their own source of lift, so it's kind of just keep your head on a swivel, make sure you don't fly into each other. One of the cool things about motor is you can get low and see detail, but it's riskier to do things this way because you're limited on time and altitude if you have to make any corrections or deal with any issues. Flying in close proximity to terrain is a personal risk management decision in both sports. Some areas of the world have amazing options for flying without a motor. So if you have the right terrain, good weather, and it's not breaking any laws, you can fly to your heart's content. Some places you can only fly with a motor. And if you have the resources to do both, then it makes sense to fly your ass off with a paraglider all spring, summer, and fall, and then to get the motor out for the wintertime. One thing that's not immediately obvious about paragliding is how long it takes to become a proper canopy pilot. But for this reason, I think the sport is more engaging for a longer period of time because you kind of have this ladder to climb. The more that you understand about the canopy, the weather, the terrain, and yourself, the longer, higher, and further you can fly. It's like you're always able to connect these dots that make you into a more capable, safer canopy pilot.
Do you like flying?
The community around Paramotor is typically more spread out, but there are really cool festivals a couple times a year if you can make it. Paragliding communities are really awesome to be a part of, and they're usually made possible through volunteer effort, which is pretty amazing if you think about it. Much of the environment is centered around continuing education. In both sports, you have the ability to choose what type of air you're flying in, so it really comes down to maturity and patience. In an ultralight aircraft, as long as you have a suitable strobe light, you can fly 30 minutes after sunset or before sunrise. For paragliding, the equipment cost is much less. You can get a harness, wing, and reserve for about $4,800 brand new. But for a paramotor, you can't even get a motor brand new at that cost, so they generally start at about $5,000 to $6,000, and you still need a wing and a reserve on top of that.
Well, all in all, an awesome flight. Plenty of gas left. We flew for about an hour. What was crazy is we had about 5-6 people come up and talk to us, and everybody was super excited about seeing us flying around. Nobody was pissed. And we didn't do anything crazy or obnoxious. We were just flying around the river a little bit, but lots of interest, lots of enthusiasm when people saw us flying. We're like fucking rock stars. So yeah, it's a little bit different field than a paragliding outing. It's a lot of questions, right? Is this going to be okay? Is anybody going to get pissed off? We're going to get a ticket, that sort of thing. But it went great, man. Super fun day, really smooth conditions, and on a day where we can't fly with our paragliders anyway, really, at our home site. So it was a really great option. How was it?
Such a cool view. That's a great view. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful.
It's really nice. Good flight for you?
Good, real good. For you?
Hell yeah.
Good. It was awesome, man.
Big flare. Nice! Woo! Perfect.